What does a peanut butter sandwich have to do with you cleaning out your garage this spring? Well, probably more than you might think. Now that spring has officially sprung here in the Northern Hemisphere, our plants and our to-do lists are most likely growing, which meant it's probably a pretty good time to discuss the process of breaking big, overwhelming tasks down into smaller, more manageable chunks so that our ADHD brains will actually want to take action and follow through on the plans that we're making. So stay tuned for today's episode of the ADHD Mompreneur. But really quick, before we dive into today's topic, allow me just a minute to introduce myself in case you are new. My name is Christy Lingo, and I am an executive function and accountability coach for ADHD mom business owners looking for strategies to juggle building their successful business with running their family and household. I am also the author of the recently published 365 Days for ADHD Moms, a practical daily guide designed to address the specific challenges we face as moms with ADHD. Each day offers a short, ADHD-friendly strategy, mindset shift, or practical tool to help you better understand your ADHD brain and manage your time, energy, and overwhelm without guilt or perfectionism. If you'd like to learn more about 365 Days for ADHD Moms or order a copy for yourself, be sure to stop by bit.ly/365 Days for ADHD Moms or follow the link in the show description. Now, writing a book with 365 different passages would definitely qualify as a big project. And I guarantee you that if I had not taken the time to think through all the different steps it would take to write a 400+ page book, there is no way that I would be sitting here right now telling you that I wrote a book or that it had actually been published. You've probably read or heard the phrase break big tasks down about 1 million times in ADHD podcasts, blogs, or books. Maybe closer to 2 million if you have been following me for a while. But what does it actually mean to break a big project down into smaller, more manageable chunks? And how do you even do it in the first place? Well, let's go back to our peanut butter sandwich. As a second grader, one of my sons had an assignment to write down all of the steps to make a peanut butter sandwich. Nearly every student in the class started their essay by saying the first thing that you do when making a peanut butter sandwich is to put the peanut butter on the bread. To which the teacher replied, actually, the first thing you need to do when you make a peanut butter sandwich is to get out the plate and the knife and the peanut butter and the bread. I love this example when it comes to tackling projects, especially for those of us with ADHD, because so often we want to dive right into spreading the peanut butter on the bread, all before we've actually set ourselves up to spread the peanut butter on the bread. Those early steps of getting out the things that we need to be able to make the sandwich may feel mundane or boring or unnecessary, but they are the foundation that allows us to move forward with the other parts of the process. And when we can ease our way into a goal or project, it helps us to gain confidence, build momentum, and get those all-important dopamine hits that are going to keep us going to see the project through to the finish. Looking at our to-do list and seeing a big project like clean out the garage can feel a lot more overwhelming than a smaller task like take the yard waste from last fall to the curb. Seeing a smaller, clearly defined task with a beginning and end point can help to lower the barrier to entry and make it easier for us to get started, or at least have some places that we can start. And while breaking tasks down into smaller steps will actually grow the length of your to-do list, I like to think of all these additional tasks as opportunities to get a little bit of dopamine each time you cross off one of those smaller tasks. So, how do we even get started breaking a big, overwhelming project down into a smaller, more manageable task list? Well, it all comes down to knowing. First, we need to know the steps. You could start by making a brain dump of all the steps involved if it is a task that you are familiar with or something that you've done previously. Or if it's not something you're familiar with, you could try to Google it to see if somebody else has made a checklist or breakdown that you could adapt to your specific project. Once you get all the steps down, it helps to go back and refine your list to the smallest steps possible to lower the barrier of entry and make it easier for you to start. For instance, your big, overwhelming project of cleaning out the garage might have a step that includes clearing off a shelving unit so that you can move it to a different place. While clearing and organizing a shelving unit might feel overwhelming because it is a mishmash of every project that you have started over the past decade along with a bunch of random sports equipment, it might feel a bit less overwhelming if you break it into steps like clear one shelf or group like items together or get rid of everything that's trash. Once we know the steps that we need to take, we need to know the order that they'll go in. In all projects, there will be some steps that you can do at any point during the process and some that need to be done in a specific order. For instance, if we plan to move the shelving unit that we discussed earlier, we know that we need to clear everything off of it first in order to move it. Just like we need to grab the plate, the knife, the peanut butter, and the bread before we make our sandwich, there will likely be steps that you need to take first in order to streamline your process and prevent extra work later. And once you have an idea of the steps you need to take and a rough idea of the order that they go in, it can be helpful to know or identify any speed bumps you might run into to slow down your progress. When you hit a speed bump while driving, it typically slows you down, or at least it's supposed to. And for many ADHDers, once we slow down or lose momentum on a project, we also tend to lose interest and motivation to work on it. Knowing what might be a speed bump to your progress in advance may help you to pre-problem solve so you don't get stuck or give up. Things you might encounter include physical speed bumps, like objects that are too heavy for you to move or too high for you to reach. For instance, if you're cleaning out your garage, you might have an old couch taking up space in there, and the speed bump may be that it's just too big for you to move yourself. There might also be logistical speed bumps. Things like lack of knowledge, not having the right equipment or tools, needing additional help, or the weather might not cooperate. Back to moving that garage couch, if we see get rid of garage couch on our task list, we may want to ask for help from family or friends to move it or schedule a bulk trash pickup to prevent that couch from slowing our progress. And we might run into energy, emotional, and executive function speed bumps. Things like burnout or feeling overwhelmed by the task or lack of progress. Or your ADHD brain may just decide it's ready to move on to something different. When we start to lose momentum due to energy or emotional speed bumps, we may be able to reinvigorate a bit of that excitement by focusing on what that end goal was that made us want to start the task in the first place. Like what we're going to do with all the newfound space in our garage once we get rid of that stanky old couch, rather than just thinking about how we don't want to move it. It can also be helpful for you to find a way to make your project fun, especially when you start to lose a bit of momentum. Make a playlist of songs that pump you up while you're working. Gather friends and family members so that you can all work together. And figure out a reward for yourself when you reach specific milestones, which means it's important for you to know the key milestones of your project. While I am a big proponent of celebrating any and all progress, because who doesn't like a little hit of dopamine as often as possible, it can help you to also have pre-planned celebratory markers along the way so that you can chart and see and celebrate your progress. Plan in advance a way that you will reward yourself when you get to a certain point. For instance, once you have gotten rid of the garage couch and moved the shelving unit, you could reward yourself by ordering those bins that you've had your eye on in order to get all of your gardening tools off the floor and onto the shelf. And all 4 of the steps that we've talked about so far will actually happen during the planning process, i.e., before you actually take any action on your task or project, which I realize can be difficult for our ADHD brains who just want to do the darn thing. But once you know the steps, know the order, know the speed bumps, and know the milestones, it's time for you to know when you'll do the work. Unfortunately, the time that you need to work on your big task or project is not going to just magically appear. And since our ADHD brains love to tell us that we can get way more done in an allotted time than we actually can, planning specific time for specific steps can help to prevent things like pulling everything out of the garage because you think that you can organize 7 cabinets in the 2 hours before a soccer game on a Saturday afternoon, only to figure out that you couldn't and everything is still in the driveway, or you just shoved it back into the garage, making more of a mess than was there previously. Luckily, since your list of tasks are typically things that have a beginning and an end, like taking the yard waste to the curb or sorting through the sports equipment, we can work during the allotted time, crossing smaller tasks off the list without doing the 1 step forward, 2 steps back because we bit off more than we could chew. And if you have a due date for your project, it's even more important that you schedule specific time each week leading up to when you need the project complete. That way, you don't end up waiting until the last minute and needing to stay up all night cleaning out the garage because that's where you're hosting your child's birthday party the next day. So in review, when it comes to tackling those big spring projects or projects any time of year, it all comes down to knowing. Knowing the steps, knowing the order those steps go in, knowing the speed bumps that might trip you up, knowing the milestones to help you see the progress you're making, and knowing when you're going to work will go a long way in helping to get your ADHD brain on board to start the project, continue to follow through, and hopefully finish. I'd love to know if you have any tactics or strategies to share for when you break down big, overwhelming tasks or projects. Share your tips or questions in the comment below. And while you're down there, be sure to hit the like, follow, or subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes, like next time when we will discuss the time management tactic of errand stacking, which can help you save both time and money, especially if gas prices keep going up, by planning ahead your route and knocking out several errands at one time. So until next time, keep making your ADHD journey part of your success story. If you're a business owning mom with ADHD, you're going to need to grab my free customizable essential checklists for ADHD mompreneurs by visiting bit.ly/checklists for ADHD mompreneurs or by following the link in the episode description. Do it now before you forget. Until next time.